Welcome to Avalon's Celebrating Recovery Series. This month, we are chatting to inspiring women in recovery each week to share their stories and celebrate their recovery in honor of Recovery Month. Today, we are excited to introduce our speaker, Constance Barnes. Constance is a social activist, a former Vancouver Park Board Commissioner, and a past board chair of Avalon Recovery Society. She bravely decided to go public with her addiction in 2009 as an elected official with the City of Vancouver, and following treatment, became an active and valued member of our Avalon community. Welcome, Constance.
Oh, thank you. Hello, ladies or gentlemen or whoever. Non-binary, I'm going to be good.
Thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
So, can you tell us what it was like before you started your recovery journey?
Oy vey. I can. And it's interesting because when you said that I went public, I had really no choice. So I was elected at the municipal level and I got a DUI. And after the DUI, I went home and I isolated and I started drinking more and I started taking Ativan because I was having panic attacks. And I knew that was, if I didn't do something, I was going to be in serious trouble. My kids who were teenagers were coming home saying, "Mom, like you've been in the bedroom for 3-4 days." It wasn't good. So I ended up calling the mayor and they said, like, "Don't say anything. We'll figure it out," which made it even worse. So of course I kept drinking. And at that point I was drinking pretty much everything and anything. And I'd go and get bottles of sake and I would just lay in my bed and I would drink. And then I'd get nervous. So I'd be taking Ativan. And then I'd take Gravol because I'd get so sick to my stomach. So it was just an absolute mess. And I called the mayor back and said, "We need to do something." And he said, "The only thing you can do, Constance, is come clean." So, and that was my dad's rule. When the you know what hits the fan, you just face it and deal with it. So I went public and it was in the media for days and days and days. I ended up going over to the Orchard, which absolutely saved my life. So I was at a point where I would wake up in the morning. I was an executive director of one of the top tourist attractions in Vancouver. And amazingly enough, not a lot of people knew. My family knew, but I was actually what you call the functioning, which I look back now and I'm like, yeah, you weren't functioning. But I would go in, I had to get up in the morning and drink before I could put my makeup on, drink before I put my suit on and my, stiletto, my pointy shoes. And I would go to work and then at my lunch, like all I do all day sitting at the desk is thinking about when do I get my next drink? When could I have my next drink? Like that's all I was obsessed with, thinking about when I got to drink again, because I was just shaky and my body could not function without alcohol. So I worked close to the downtown east side and I would go in and get off sales and go into the alleys where the urine soaked alleys with people shooting up and doing everything else. I didn't care. And I would buy Smirnoff ice and, act like I was all cool and go in and get a couple of off sales. And then I'd go into the alley and suck them back as fast as I could. And then, eat a bite of an onion or something ridiculous. It's like, I think back and it's like, who do you think you were kidding, Constance? So that's kind of how it was. And it was nausea every morning until I got something in my system. And then I usually would throw that up, but hold it in as much as I could because I was just shaking. And I know it's like, I think back now and it's quite disgusting to where I was. But for anybody out there, I'm at 11 and a half years of sobriety now. So it's like, there's times I go, how in God's name? And the only thing I can possibly say is that this definitely is a higher power. There is a God out there, because when I went in, I was like, I didn't believe in God. I didn't believe in this. Higher power was a tree. Then it became my kids. But I know for a fact I'm here. I'm on this earth to do something. I didn't know what it was. The universe and God knew what it was. And I just needed to get out of the way because for whatever reason, I went to the Orchard and it worked. It worked for me. There's sadly, I would say 2% that actually stay clean once they get out. So it was horrible. My kids were angry at me. They're now in their 30s and we now have a relationship. My son and I, a really good relationship. My daughter still knows how to poke the bear. So there's times that, I should have had braces, but you drank the money, right? And she still will poke the bear. And then my guilt goes into, let's go shopping, right? And it's also, so I'm still learning how to not allow the guilt to take over. I think that the saddest thing was I missed so much of my children. And they're both amazing now. Thank God. Neither one of them are addicted to anything that I'm aware of. One, doesn't drink. One blazes a little bit, smokes a little pot here and there, but they're non-drinkers. They're both very successful. And that was one of my fears because my family, there's serious addiction. So I have, let's see, bulimia in the family, anorexia in the family, schizophrenia in the family, alcoholism in the family, I'm mixed. So the Black side of the family in the States that have been incarcerated. The white side of my family is a whole nother story. And then that's part of it too. What I didn't realize and I learned when I went into recovery is being mixed was part of what I started to mask because I'd be called the N-word every day and we were beaten up, and I'm born and raised in Port Moody. So there were no Black people except for the Barnes family. My dad, who played for BC Lions, so he was all great. And whenever he'd come to the school, everybody's like, oh, but as soon as he'd leave, we'd get called names. I have 3 sisters and a brother. We used to get beaten up and spat upon. So I kind of became the class clown. And then the next thing you know, by high school, I was drinking what they call Lonesome Charlies. For any of you that remember a Lonesome Charlie, now I laugh because I think, no kidding, lonesome is right. And I masked the feelings with humor and being the class clown. I was a great athlete and could have done so much more than what I did. But I'm now at a point that I try not to go back. I don't close the door on it, like they say, but I've been able to move forward. I work in the downtown east side now, so I'm helping people with addiction. I've been able to help people with the struggle of alcohol. I now am on the front lines in the downtown east side, so I carry around a naloxone kit. I'm giving people, zero 0.4 naloxone because the fentanyl and oxy is so incredibly bad. We lose maybe 3 people a day in the downtown east side now. So it's one of those jobs that really, it fulfills me, as at the same time that it breaks my heart. But it reminds me I was this close to being there. Like I was so close because I was starting to lose work. I was losing my ability to just think straight. Every morning, that's all I thought about was the booze. I didn't see any way out. I would go all day, I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to drink. And it would be seriously like 7 minutes to 11. And I'd be in my Jeep driving down to the beer and wine store to get a liter of cider. Don't know how many times I drank with my kids in the car. So I was intoxicated and I drank with my babies in the car. I showed up at school unacceptably drunk. And those are all the things that my kids remember. And we talk about them now. I let them get it out because that's their reality. Even if I'm like, okay, yeah, it wasn't that bad. Their reality is what it is. And I have to allow my kids, well, now grown, to say, I call it the cringe moment. Say, oh, and I just cringe because it's cringeworthy. But their memories are very valid. And I have to validate that and allow them to have those memories. Even if I disagree with them, it's just not my place. So now I'm working hard. I've got 11 and a half years of sobriety. I've ventured over to the sugar land though. I've been eating a lot of sugar, which I don't usually do, but I was laid off and it's smoky and I'm all of a sudden eating the sugar and I'm not on my bicycle. So yeah, the pandemic, what do they call 15 pounds? And I've surpassed it. So on the days that I look at myself and go, I also look and I say, what's the worst thing that could happen? The worst thing that could happen is that I pick up and I use. So that's kind of it in a large nutshell.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. And you mentioned the pandemic, and I'm just
Yeah,
wondering if you can kind of share what is your experience in recovery right now during this pandemic time?
that's a really, really good question because I'm really enjoying the isolation. I'm actually really comfortable just being by myself. I mean, I'm always on. So my work is I deal with the media, I deal with the provincial government, the federal government. I'm very political, so I'm kind of in all of that. And I come home and I'm in my own little space. And what I love is nobody can knock on my door. Well, they can, but I don't have to let them in. Including I love you, mom, but including my mom. It's always got berries or something to drop off. But there's times I'm like, oh God, it's mom or it's my family. And I'm like, my kids are good, but and I have a sister that's good. But sometimes I'm just like, I just can't deal with it. It's too much drama. So what I have had to do is really sit still. I have found that I'm depressed. So the depression is snuck in, which leads to me to eat. So I'm learning that I eat comfort. I eat, for comfort. Um, I have a tendency to just like right now, I'm sleeping so much. My family's like, well, you've been on for the last 13 years. You haven't ever taken a break. You haven't taken a holiday. But for me, to sleep as much as I am is just, it's not okay. But I really, really find it hard to even get out of bed. There's days that I'm like, no, I'm staying in my bed. And the guilt comes in because when I was a kid, we never were allowed to sleep in. We didn't have weekends off. We would always be out working in the yard, and my dad would put on this it's from the army that and all of the kids, we had to get up and we had to stand floors or do whatever. So I've talked to my siblings about that and they're like, oh yeah, me too. I can't sleep in. So it's trying to rewire my brain that number one, there's a pandemic happening out there. Um, Number two, smoky, smoky, smoky. And it's just not good. I mean, I'm in my 60s. So as much as I think I'm young and spry, there are times I realize, or my children remind me, okay, mom, you're 62, you're turning 63 this year. And I'm like, shut up. I'm fine. But the pandemic has really made me think, what do I really want to do with my life? Am I enjoying the work I'm doing? Do I even want to go back? And why am I doing what I'm doing? Is it just for the money? Is it because I really feel like I'm doing something good? Is it because I don't have a pension and I need to put money away? Is it because it's what my family thinks I should be doing? All these questions are now coming up. And sometimes I'm thinking, I wouldn't mind moving to a faraway little island and raising sheep and having a little farm. It's like, I'm starting to realize the real Constance is, yes, I put lipstick on, but I'm all sweaty because I've been purging and getting rid of so much stuff in my house that I'm like, does this make me happy? No. Why do I have it in my house? My house is cluttered. There's so much stuff. So I bagged it all up and I'm taking it down to the downtown east side for people to sell, vendors to sell. It's like, why do I accumulate all this stuff? Does it surround me and make me feel better? Does it make me feel comfortable? So I'm now looking at, okay, these end of years in my life, excuse my language, what the fuck do I want to do? It's like, what do I want to do? What's going to make me happy? Because it's like the book, The Four Agreements, which I read when I was in therapy. It's like, what other people think of me, it's none of my business. And I love that because who am I to get in their heads and walk away going, oh, they're probably thinking this and that. It's not my business. That's their stuff. And we're so caught up. And I say we, because so many people I talk to are like, oh God, yeah, well, oh, I went into the room and I said this and oh, I just know they think I'm crap. And I'm like, so why do you care what they think? Like, how are you that important? That As soon as you leave the room, you think everybody's going to go, oh my God, did you see Constance? Did you see what she was wearing? Did you see how much weight she gained? Did you see, did you hear the language? It's like, you know what? It's actually, that's your stuff. That's you keep your side of the street clean. I'm keeping my side of the street clean, or maybe it's not clean today. But guess what? That's my stuff. And I'm going to look after my stuff. And it's like, I stretch my arms out and I go, okay, this is my area. This is my circle. This is my space. Um, and sometimes I need to get out of my head. So I will look down to the ground. I'm very visual. So I look down to the ground and I put my arms out. And within that circle, I think, okay, I'm right here now. And I actually jump out of the circle so that I'll get out of my head. It's like, okay, get out of there, get out of there. It's a dangerous place being in your head. And I will actually look where I am and then jump over there and then look back and say, I'll be talking to you later. So I have all these little, what we call tools in the toolbox. And I try to bring those out, try to be in the moment, try not to overthink, try to get the old rat that's running around in my brain to just chill, because I can overthink and overthink and overthink. And then at the end of that, you think, okay, so you just spent half the day thinking about, what's going to happen with work or the pandemic, what's going to happen with my kid, and did it help anything? No, no. All it did is took a good portion of your day away and you're in your head. And guess what, Constance? You're not in control of any of this. The only thing I'm in control of is how I respond to it. And sometimes now I decide I'm not actually going to respond. I don't have to respond. So in that sense, it's kind of where I am now. I was telling a friend the other day, she said, oh, you're not on Facebook anymore. It's because what I find is I can wake up in a really, really good mood. I can turn on my computer, look at Facebook, or lay in my bed with my phone and look at Facebook and see somebody with their little kids and they're all happy and they're out on the beach and they're all excited and they're going to go do this. And it irritates me. And the next thing you know, I'm like, God, look at them. Everything's so perfect. Oh, and I get all irritated. And the next thing you know, I'm, searching, and then I'm looking at somebody else that politically is doing something. And I'm like, oh, great. So she's going to do that. And I'm like, what? That's the old me. And I find that social media really turns me into not a good person. And I start comparing myself and I start looking at other people. And I forget that, of course, they're going to put the good pictures on. They're not going to put the ones where the kids are throwing stuff at him saying, I hate you. It's always the happy shots. So I've realized social media is not a healthy place for me to be. Except for things like this that are reaching out, hopefully, to people that are struggling. And I would say to anybody out there, you can go to Facebook. Don't go to Constance Barnes and message me. I'm always open to talk. I'm always open to help. It's all about giving back. So don't ever, ever, ever be afraid to reach out. And as women, these are the women too that aren't the catty women. We're alcoholics, we're addicts, we're, struggling with being single moms and drinking to numb the pain and divorce and getting beaten on, been there, done it all. So reach out, because there's nothing you can tell me that I'm going to go, oh, that's just disgusting. Because I'll be, oh, I remember that. So there you go.
I love that. I think it's so great that you're so candid about your life and your recovery journey, and I think it's important for women to hear that, especially in a time like this where we're isolating, and your story is very similar to so many, and
Yeah.
for you to then put it out there, message me and reach out. I think more and more need to do that, and we need to be that for one another. So thank you so much for sharing that.
My pleasure. My
Yeah.
pleasure.
And if there was one thing you could tell your younger self prior to, addiction and all of that, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good, you know what would it might be kind to yourself. Don't be so freaking hard on yourself. Don't compare yourself to everybody. You are good just who you are. It's so, yeah, you hear that. It's like, yeah, right. but I'm not very kind to myself. I can look in a mirror and go, oh my God, look at the chins. Oh God, I put on so much weight. Or why did what's going on with my face? And here's the thing. If I was with a friend, would I say that to a friend? Like, oh my God, look at all your chins. Ew, what did you do to your hair? Or wow, you put on a lot of weight. No. So why the heck do I do it to myself? People say, oh, you're looking good. Or, oh, you. So we need to be telling ourselves that. Don't be so freaking hard on ourselves, and get away from the media if it irritates you. Get away from those magazines and looking at those people that are, probably on heroin. That's why they're so thin. I mean, really, we don't know those stories. Be true to yourself. Dig deep. I'd say dig to my younger self is dig deep and figure out what actually makes you happy. If there was nobody else in the world and you could just do what you wanted to do, what would that be? So that I would say that to my young self. So what do you actually want to do? Forget mom and dad and brothers and sisters and all the other people that think you'd be a good this or think you should do. So, and I was Connie then. It would be, so what do you want, little Connie? And little Connie needs a hug. My therapist said that at one point. I said, Connie. Goes, who's that? And I said, that's me. This is Constance. Where's Connie come from? And I said, I was always Connie. He said, oh. He says, you need to give that little girl a hug. She's been waiting for a hug for many years. And right away I was like, ew, Connie. And he goes, see, that's how you treated Connie. And it was true. I was like, always, Connie, don't call me Connie. And I'd scrunch up my face. That was me. That is me. So why do I scrunch up my face and think back like, oh God, she needs a hug. So I need to say, hey, Connie, I know you're in there. I love you. And be good to myself, because we should always be good to ourselves. Forget everybody else for a while. Just isolate in your house and have some ice cream and be good to yourself, women.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And just to recap, be kind, be good to yourself, and dig deep.
Yes. Oh, that's perfect. You're very good at that. Be kind, be good to yourself, and dig deep. And if you want to have some ice cream, God damn it, have it. It's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. You just, you know what? It didn't get on there in one night, and it's not going to come off in one night. So just work at it one day at a time.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Constance. Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And women, I tell you, we are the weight of the world. And if the women were running the world, it'd be a totally different place. So be true to yourself, love yourself. And if you got daughters out there, go give them a hug. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing and allowing us to celebrate your recovery with you.
Thank you.
And for anyone who's looking to connect with Constance, all of her information is on Facebook, and it's Constance Barnes. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye all.